Hi, this is fifth grade teacher Heidi Levine, and you're listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Hey, everybody, this is Steve Anderson, animation director and storyboard artist, and you are listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Hi, I'm Imagineer Tom Morris, and you're listening to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Skull Rock Podcast, where you hear the stories behind the adventures. With your hosts, Aljon and Dave Bossert.
Whether you're a lifelong Disney fan, theme park junkie, or just someone who loves great storytelling, you found your new favorite podcast, Skull Rock Podcast. Every single week, Dave and I bring you through the backstage of Disney and talk about all kinds of great Imagineers and storytellers and filmmakers. I'm Aljon, lifelong Disney fan and pop culturist.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, and author. Welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. Aljon, we had a big response from our 300th episode last week.
That's awesome.
We got a lot of really nice notes, and I just figured let's just jump right into our mailbag.
Let's do that, Dave. What's in the mailbag this week?
Well, we got a nice note that from our friend Paul from Parts Unknown, because I don't even know if he's in Tokyo or in London or England, wherever he is. But he said, congratulations on the 300th episode. So many great episodes to enjoy and revisit as well, and roll on to the quincentenary yet to come. Okay. I'm like, okay, I have to look up that word. But that's from my friend Paul from Parts Unknown. I know he was based out of Tokyo, but I think he might have moved back to England. Not sure. But thank you, Paul, for that.
Nice.
We got a note from Erica, a longtime listener in Alabama. Congrats, listening now. And then this one from Ethan Reed, Imagineer and a former guest that we had on the Skull Rock. He said, congratulations, Dave and Aljon. Here's to the next 300. The oral history you guys have amassed over the last 300 episodes is a priceless gift to the animation, Imagineering, and Disney fan community. Thank you both for everything you do. Ethan Reed. Thank you, Ethan.
That is so good.
And then finally we got one from a listener, John in Florida. He says, congratulations on being so awesome. You two make an entertaining educational duo. I look forward to hearing you every week. Great milestone. So thank you, John in Florida. Appreciate that.
That's nice.
Yeah, so it was just wonderful to get a lot of comments coming through from various folks. And as always, please send us your comments either through social media or any other way you feel like doing a comment on our YouTube page or whatever. I love the fact, Aljon, that not only can people listen to this while they're driving in their cars, commuting to work or whatever, but they can also now watch us.
Absolutely. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about right now. We've been talking about our 300 episode book giveaway. And I mentioned Rafflecopter, this is the page. Now, Dave, this is new to you, but I actually made this website right after we did our show. So you can check this link right here. The link is going to be in our show notes, but our 300 episode book giveaway, of course, Dave and I are giving 3 pre-release copies of Dave Bossert's new book, Walt Disney World War II, months before the November 2026 release. As we sit here, talk to you, you can register, sign up using Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, X. You can write your name, your email address, enter the giveaway. That is step 1. We have the official rules listed here as well. We have official rules. So I'm scrolling down there.
Yeah,
so you know that we're covered.
I want to make sure that I want to reiterate to our listeners, the book is free. And if you live in the United States, the shipping is free. But if you live outside the United States, sorry, folks, you're going to have to pay for the shipping, which is steep. It could be anywhere from $65 to $85 going overseas. So I just want people to realize that, okay? So
Yes.
I'm happy to do all the legwork and ship it to you, but I can't foot the bill for the shipping outside the United States.
Absolutely. That is actually specifically listed in the rules of engagement here. So
Okay.
just click the link for the rules. You've got to be 18 and up in order to register to win. And the period for the giveaway, of course, it started last week, but it goes all the way to August 16th. That's when I made it. August 16th at 11:59 p.m. Central. That is the entry period to be eligible. Of course, you can use all of those X, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. in order to enter. 3 people will win the copy of Dave's book, of course, as he mentioned. If you're living outside the United States, you are responsible if you so choose to have it shipped to you. But there is the site. Can you believe it, Dave? I mean, I don't use AI for a lot, but I did use AI to build this website.
Hey, listen, I love this. The only thing I would say is get it a month before the November release, not months.
Yes.
I would take the S off at some point.
Okay.
Because just folks, just so you know, as soon as I get inventory, I will ship those 3 copies out to our winners. Okay. And I love the fact that it's ending on August 16th is the day after my birthday.
Oh,
How's
Dave,
that?
that's awesome.
That.
I love it. I love it. Well, there you go. The link will be in the show notes, and we'll also have it posted on our social media accounts as well. So be sure to check that out.
Hi, I'm Mark Simon, the godfather of storyboarding. And if you rock, you listen to Skull Rock Podcast.
Hello, I'm Philo Barnhart, animation artist, and you're listening to Skull Rock Podcast.
Now, Dave, we normally do our picks of the week, but we're going to bypass it this week. What's going on in the world of the charts and streaming and in the theaters? Dave, I mean, I think the big juggernaut right now is the Odyssey as we live and breathe.
It is, and it looks like it's going to be number 1, or it is number 1 for the second weekend in a row. It only dropped, I think, like 30%, which is absolutely amazing for a movie like this. And it really is a blowout hit. And by the way, I didn't go to the movies this past week because there was nothing major being released because no studios wanted to put their film out the week after the Odyssey.
Of course
not.
not.
So the next big movie is Spider-Man: A Brand New Day, which is coming out this coming Friday. Yeah, Friday. I think Thursday night they're doing previews at a lot of theaters. But this coming weekend is opening weekend for the new Spider-Man movie.
Absolutely. It's going to be insane. I think Spider-Man is going to blow it wide open, over 300 million at the box office. I believe it. It's going to happen. Man, that's going to be insane. But yeah, Odyssey looks to me like the huge juggernaut. Moana, number 2. It's doing okay. Families are starting to pick up a little bit. Minions and Monsters, Toy Story 5. I mean, it is a summer of family films, right? Every studio is putting them out.
Yeah, it really is. It's fantastic. And by the way, when I went to see the Odyssey, it was a full house. So it's really nice to see people going to the movies.
Well, yes, and Disney's making bank. I mean, you've got Toy Story 5, Moana still doing okay. Evil Dead Burn, Dave, I saw it.
And
I saw it. It was fantastic. Fantastic horror movie. Not too bad for the Evil Dead series. The Invite, Young Washington, Obsession still in it. Supergirl hanging on by a thread, by a cape, if you will. Disclosure Day, Backroom, scary movie. My goodness. I mean, the landscape is going to change next week with Spider-Man. I guarantee you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, things are going to shift around. Dave, it is San Diego Comic-Con time in the world, and the Avengers are taking front and center stage. Of course, the big hall panel happened. You had the entire cast. You had the classic X-Men. You've got the Avengers. You have RDJ, Doctor Doom in full effect. You also had great announcements. Okay, so Hall H had a bunch of really cool things. Ryan Reynolds came up on stage. He didn't come up on stage. He was asking questions from the audience with a really good Deadpool cameo. Pedro Pascal, Haley Atwell returning to the Marvel Universe as well. I love Haley Atwell, Dave. It's great to see.
Look, I was thrilled when I heard that they were doing another Deadpool movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Black Panther 3 set for December 15th of 2028. Director Ryan Coogler returns for the third installment. Directing David Johnson is starring as T'Challa's son. So they've recast T'Challa's son. Of course, they're never going to go back and recast the original T'Challa, but it's great to see him. Great to see the franchise moving forward, especially with Ryan Coogler at the helm. No better than Ryan Coogler. Dave, Ghost Rider. Ryan Gosling announced for 2028 to put on the, I guess, the black leather and the flaming skull. I mean, it's great to see Ryan Gosling. And, I mean, what do you think about that?
I got to tell you, Ryan Gosling is, he's got the Midas touch. Everything he's in is a hit.
Yeah, wow.
And when you see some of these movies initially, like you hear about like La La Land, the musical, you're like, uh-oh, and that was a blowout. It did so well. He knows how to pick the movies. When I read this, that Ryan Gosling was going to be in Ghost Rider, I was like, okay, this is going to be a huge hit. I can't wait to see this movie. I can't wait until 2028. Make this movie now.
Absolutely. I agree. Ghost Rider is one of my favorite, characters in the Marvel universe. And I can only see someone like a Nick Cage be the mentor to this version, much like the original, the Ghost Rider, where you had Sam Elliott kind of perform that same role. So it'd be really cool if that happened. And of course, directed by Sean Levy. Sean Levy, Deadpool and Wolverine. He comes from that. Just a tremendous filmmaker in his own right, a great attitude, a great sense of humor in his films. And I love the fact that not only is he doing the new film with Ghost Rider, with Ryan Gosling, but he's also doing the Star Wars film that's going to be taking place next year as well.
Yeah.
So I mean,
he's busy.
So yeah, you have Gosling and then you have you have him coming back as well. I mean, that's a really good thing for the both of them, I think. So anyway, it's going to be really fun to see. So there we have that. A lot of really good stuff happening in the Marvel MCU. So Percy Jackson, yes.
I was going to say, I love this time of year because they always make all these big announcements at the Comic-Con down in San Diego.
Absolutely. I mean, and Sean Levy's great. But here's the thing I'm going to say, that Dave, I mean, D23 is only a few weeks away too. And I would think that they're also going to be, blowing our minds again at D23 with more new stuff. In fact, I'm going to be going back. I say I'm going to be going back, but I'm really going to ask Kristen if we could go see Avengers Endgame again in theaters with the bonus features. Have you seen this?
No,
they're going to re-release Marvel's Avengers Endgame in theaters with like 7 or 8 minutes worth of extra footage.
Okay.
And they're going to set up Doomsday that's coming out during Christmas. So it's going to be pretty nice.
When are they doing the re-release of
next month?
What's next month? Okay.
Yeah, next month. So here, and I say next month, I mean, it's only next month. It's a few days away.
Yeah.
Disney Plus and Percy Jackson, Dave. Percy Jackson and the Olympian Season 3 is going to be taking place November 20th of this year on Disney Plus. Emotional Annabeth search angle plus Darker Titans curse tone. That's going to be happening. X-Men 97 Season 2 panel hints at more seasons ahead. That's really great for Marvel animation. That show is really, really great. Dave, they've also announced a brand new book that tells the story of Star Wars' twins, Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker training together, which I guess is kind of hinted at in the sequel trilogy, but they're actually going to be expanding on that in a series of books. And then I guess overall, everybody just loved all the stuff coming in from the House of Mouse this year, Marvel and Star Wars, respectively.
Yeah,
So,
but I mean, they're making all these announcements at Comic-Con. What are they going to do next month at D23?
they're probably going to do a lot more.
Okay. All right.
I
Yeah.
think they're holding back. I mean, listen, Spider-Man is going to be released and a lot will be revealed. They'll probably talk about how this sets up the next movie. I mean, I feel like you're in a difficult space when it comes to Marvel because you've spent 20, almost 15, 18 years setting up this entire franchise with one film after the other. And then you have to have these post-credit scenes that kind of lead you on to the next chapter. And that's a lot of pressure.
No,
That's a lot of pressure.
It is.
I mean, and we've been watching James Bond movies for a long time. I mean, Marvel's kind of, it's hard to top every single year. And then, the James Bond films, they don't do that, but they do something different. And, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they're able to string people along.
Agreed.
So having said that, gang, let's sit back and relax and bring in our friend Joe Lanzisero, Imagineer extraordinaire, in a part 1 of a multi-piece interview that Dave sat down with him to discuss right here on Skull Rock Podcast.
Let's do it.
Hey, let's chat.
Let's chat afterwards. Let's chat. And he said, let's chat again.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, we are back again with Joe Lanzisero, Imagineer, animator, story artist. He's done it all. Vice President of Creativity, cruise lines, the whole thing. Joe, welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast. How was that for an introduction?
Wow, what a welcome, Dave. Thank you, my friend. It's always so great to connect with you and Aljon, and I love your show and the guests you have on. I enjoyed the last. Would you have 3 or 4 episodes with Jerry Reese and Tim Landry?
Yeah, Jerry Reese and Tim Landry talking about some of the projects those guys worked on.
That was great,
and worked on for you.
Yeah, well, I did a bunch of work with them both together and individually as well. So it was great to hear. And I always love when people give you a call out, and I try to always do the same, because we all work in teams, and always important to acknowledge those people. So that was great. And I enjoy you and Aljon's great recommendations. I think I mentioned to you when you guys recommended Young Sherlock, which was so good. It was,
wasn't it?
Series.
Joe, it's so surprising to us because Aljon and I both get separately and together feedback from listeners saying that's one of their favorite segments. They discover shows that they might not have stumbled upon. And so, look, both Aljon and I are movie fans and TV fans, and we like watching good entertainment and good, shows. Aljon likes horror stuff. I like a lot of detective and mystery shows. And so it's always a pleasure to be able to recommend those things. So I'm so glad that you watched Young Sherlock, because it really was a great show. And by the way, picked up for season 2.
They did, yeah.
Yes,
Good.
yeah.
Good.
So
Good.
okay, so
I can hear that.
Joe, it's so great having you back. And one of the things I wanted to start out talking about, and before we get into the meat and potatoes, as they say, I did want to ask you about this dust up that's happening down at Walt Disney World, where they apparently are going to take Tom Sawyer Island out and replace it with Cars Land. That seems kind of odd. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to join the chorus of many other Imagineers and fans and say I think it's a big mistake. First off, I am all for change, and Walt was too. I mean, if you look at the original Disneyland, in those first 5-10 years, he would put something in, rip it out. I mean, it was always about evolving, but there was a core DNA that he built into that park that for me was built on, creating these these immersive environments, that took you to another place. Now, that's not to say that Cars Land or a Cars attraction won't do that, but there was something about and also because it was one of Walt's favorite attractions. I mean, he loved the Lily Bell, the stern wheeler. He had his anniversary party there, a few days prior to the opening of Disneyland.
And didn't Ron Miller and Diane Disney Miller have an engagement party on that?
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, and besides the history, um, there's there. I don't understand now. Granted, there may be some operational issues, physical issues. Like I know in Tokyo, um, where I worked for years and years and years. I was in charge of that park for over 10 years. Um, that park was built on landfill.
Right.
So they had this, it was called differential settlement, because the landfill, as it kind of sank down, parts of the park literally would raise and parts would lower. And so I remember we were constantly, the jungle cruise, the back portion of the jungle cruise would flood, and the front portion of the jungle cruise the water would be too low. So they were constantly working on that. Like when we built Splash Mountain in Tokyo, we had to build it was interesting. We built a flume within the flume because we had to be able to, because it was a gravity ride, water gravity ride.
Sure.
So we built it so that there were turnbuckles so they could actually adjust the flumes so they could maintain the water level at the right height as the entire thing was settling because of this differential settlement. Anyway, I only bring that up because sometimes there's operational or physical reasons for removing it. But I think
But come on, 50 years.
create.
It was
Yeah,
50 years now of Walt
yeah,
Disney World, and it's always been Tom Sawyer Island in the middle of Rivers of America, right? So it just seems it seems odd to take that out. Whereas Cars Land, why would you put Cars Land on an island?
well, you know, again, like I said, I'm not object to change. But the other thing is, Walt Disney World is blessed with so much land.
Yes.
And in fact, I think um a couple of Imagineers, even on their own, suggested alternate site plans where they could have kept the river and added the Cars Land attraction.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that. The other thing is Florida is a pretty hot and miserable place,
Yes.
and that huge body of water in the middle of the park, I think, really added to a sense of cooling there.
Yeah.
There's another thing too, and it's another attraction that they're talking about doing, or a new land they're talking about doing, and I don't know whether or not they're going to move forward with that. And that's Villains Land. They're talking about at Walt Disney World doing a Villains Land, and it got me thinking about the original park. Walt designed each of those lands. It was at a very optimistic time historically, in the world and in America. It was post World War II.
Mhm.
We were coming out of this kind of dark time, and Walt, who we know, was a very optimistic individual. He was the eternal optimist, and so I think underscoring the stories in each of those lands, it was a story of optimism.
Mhm.
The move to in Adventureland, was about this, this exciting, adventure, going out in a river and seeing exotic animals. Um, uh, Frontierland was about the the wonders of, new territories and discovering them. Again, very optimistic stories. Of course, Tomorrowland probably was the most optimistic because particularly in that point in history, it was about, that technology was going to move us into the future.
It was
And
a
of course,
better tomorrow. A
a
better
better
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great big beautiful tomorrow shining
That's
at
right.
the end of every day. And then of course Fantasyland was, happily ever after,
Yeah.
So with that thought in mind, when I'm a lot of the decisions they've been making and about the choices of the places that they're creating, I think are, at least in my mind, a little counter to Walt's original idea of creating optimistic places. I always thought about that when I was fortunate. A lot of the things, most of the things I got to design for the parks, I felt were fell in line with that philosophy, that they were optimistic.
Yeah.
Toontown, it's bright, colorful, fun. It's a very optimistic place. A lot of the stuff I did on the cruise lines, same thing. Same with in Tokyo. A lot of the projects I did there. And I think there's some truth in the fact that people, they can't often articulate how they feel in a space, but they know when it feels good to be in that space. And I was recently, and I don't go to the parks very often anymore. But now that I have grandkids, last Christmas had to take the grandkids to Disneyland. It was fun for the first time. I hadn't been in the parks in a while, and we went to Disneyland Anaheim. And it was Christmas time, of course, so the park's all decorated. And of course, I wanted to share Toontown with them.
Sure.
And I was I was happy with all the refurbishments they did to Toontown because it was starting to look pretty tired. And I was glad they put in the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Train, which is a great attraction, freshen the land all up, and it was so fun to experience the land with the grandkids. And then so we're in there and the place was packed, strollers everywhere, kids walking all over, playing with all the interactive stuff. Loved it. I was having a wonderful moment. And then we went over to Galaxy's Edge and there was hardly anybody there. And I was walking around, I was thinking, it's Christmas time. I'm in this kind of dark, not really optimistic place. And I could see why, people weren't spending time there. They go there and I think, to a certain group of the fans, it satisfies a little expectation in terms of, what they want from a Star Wars moment. But as we know, they're going back and trying to rework that because, again, a lot of criticism that it didn't deliver on the Star Wars promise.
Right.
But taking this back to the villain's land and removing the rivers of America, I just think, they need to think a little bit more about that, why people originally went to the park and the things that they really love about the park. And it's one thing that I love about Tokyo. They've been really focused on, adding things to the park that build on the fantasy and magic. And I think the Japanese people really appreciate that. I mean, what they did with the Beauty and the Beast attraction there, what they recently did at Tokyo Disney Sea with Disney Springs, adding the Rapunzel and the Peter Pan attraction and the other things that they added there. I think all build on that kind of fantasy, optimistic happiness that people come to expect from the park. So long-winded answer to your question or inquiry about the loss of the rivers, but I think it's really taking away some of that just charm and beauty that people went to the park to experience.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. I don't want to dwell on it too much. I appreciate your viewpoint on this. And wholeheartedly agree about, the fact that it is about really, to me, it's about hope that things are better, hope that, tomorrow's a brighter day, it's positive and optimistic, and all of those things that you just said, I think are so true. I'm just curious what they're going to do in Villains Land. Are they going to populate it with executives? I shouldn't have said that, Joe. I don't know. Okay.
And
It was
you
only
and
a
I know,
suggestion.
you and I know who some of them will be.
I know, really. All right. So let's step back in time here, because you are a Cal Arts alum, like I am.
Yes.
And you started out at Walt Disney Animation Studios, but back in the day when we both were there, it was Walt Disney Productions, where
Right.
we referred to it as feature animation. We were in the feature animation group. So talk a little bit about that time, a couple of the projects you worked on, and then also how that's influenced you in your transition over to Imagineering, and how you view IP from an Imagineer standpoint.
Yeah, first off, I think we were both there it was an interesting time, Dave, right? It was great, but it was also transitional, and often things, that are in a transitional state, there's, a little bit of upheaval, a little bit of change. I mean, I think we all came, with, very, I'm going to use that word, optimistic, um, hopes of
Try again.
of creating a new renaissance of animation.
Yeah.
Initially, I mean, we were it was that transition point where the old guard was kind of moving out, and us young guys were kind of moving in, and that was natural, and that was the purpose of setting up the program at Cal Arts, right?
Yeah.
They set up that program because they knew they needed to replenish the ranks, that the 9 old men were retiring or unfortunately dying off.
Yeah.
And and so, we were fortunate at that time to get that direct handoff from those guys, learning the principles. I mean, they created the industry. These guys, I look back, when you think about, how the leaps and bounds they made in terms of furthering that art form. If you
I was going to say the 1930s.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
really, it was from really 29, 30 through the completion of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Right.
You could see it from picture to picture that they were making, of the shorts.
Yeah, it's really, it's kind of mind blowing. Exactly to your point. If you look at, like some of the shorts that they were doing just, 2 or 3 years before Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and then after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs hits, each of those features. I mean, Pinocchio is still. You look at it today, it's mind blowing work of art. Bambi, the technical qualities, of the animation of the animals, the beauty of the backgrounds, the camera work. I mean, fantastic. And then of course Fantasia, and you worked on the second.
I worked on Fantasia 2000, but the original Fantasia, I mean, was really a milestone in effects animation. It really was,
Yeah, and remember, all that was before computers.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything was hand drawn. Everything had to be figured out, calculated. Using the brain. And
Yeah.
when you watch those films and you think about it in those terms, I mean, they're monumental in their achievement. But yeah, so I got a little off track, but the point was, I think we were really fortunate to be able to learn from all those guys who made all that great stuff. But it was, and you remember, the films, the first few films I worked on, they weren't that great.
What was your first film at Disney?
Well, it was Fox and the Hound.
Okay, so you were on Fox and the Hound. I came in after that. I didn't work on Fox and the Hound. My first picture was Black Cauldron, the next one.
Which, by the way, from an effects standpoint, In fact, I don't know if you remember, I actually was doing effects for a short period of time on Black Cauldron.
Yeah, you
working
jumped in.
with
You jumped in
Kindle.
to help out.
Yep. Yeah. Um, and so you remember though. I think we were trying to find our way. The old guard were kind of moving on. And so I mean, for me, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
Because and you know this, I think we were learning as much from each other too as we were learning from that. And then, it was great that we had Eric Larson there, of course, and some of the old guys were still around. Frank and Ollie were still hanging around at that point, So we were still getting some of that influence besides all the great learnings that we got at Cal Arts. But yeah, so I think some of my big takeaways that I carried with me through the rest of my Disney career when I moved on to Imagineering, was about simple storytelling. And I think when animation worked best, it was when the story was dramatic, emotional, and always clear in its focus and what they were trying to do. And emotional. I think Walt always had that saying, behind every tear there's a smile, or behind every smile there's a tear, whatever. But yeah, the Disney films work because of that deep human connection. And so for me, I was always when I did make the transition to Imagineering, of course I loved the work that Mark Davis had done at Imagineering.
Yeah.
And Claude Coates. Claude work was great too. And they both came at it, Mark from a more character point of view, and Claude from a more environmental point of view. But in both cases, their work was imbued with human qualities. It made you feel a certain thing when you looked at it. Mark's work made you laugh. Claude's work would make you feel. I mean, he was master and you wrote the book about him.
Listen, I'm listening to you, but I'm agreeing. Claude was about creating atmosphere.
Yeah, and an atmosphere that made you feel something.
Yes.
Either you were afraid or you were happy or you were, he was a master at manipulating the spaces. And so those were the big lessons that, I took with me and tried, and carried through the rest of my career when I was at Disney.
Yeah. And when you're, when you start working on an attraction or an immersive experience at Imagineering, you're going through like tons of iterations, right? But you're always looking for that core story that you want to tell, right?
Yeah, and there was always I was fortunate in my career to be able to both create new stories or to work with existing IP. And there's advantages to both, and I enjoyed doing both. And like I said, I was fortunate. I got to do a lot. I mean, nowadays, of course, since the company it's grown so big and they spent so much money acquiring, these other companies, Pixar, Lucasfilm, and Marvel, that I doubt we'll ever see a time when they're going to do an original story again.
Which is really sad, and I think Steven Spielberg just recently commented on that that they need to get away from sequels and start investing in new stories, new IP.
He said, good,
yeah,
good.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of that, because the company has acquired all of this IP, which I think were good acquisitions for the company, but it doesn't seem to me that they're monetizing them as much as they could. Like, why haven't they built a standalone Marvel park? right? Now, I know there's some issues with some of the characters and Universal Studios and this and that. You can't do it within certain distance, so they might not be able to do it at Walt Disney World. But why not build a Marvel City park in Texas or something? You know?
Yeah, you know what? They're somewhere sitting in somewhere sitting over at Imagineering. There's a beautiful model of a Marvel park that was developed.
I saw that model, by the way, in the model shop.
Yeah.
I did see
Yeah.
it. I peeked behind the black, curtain.
Peek behind
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you. And in fact, in some ways, something like that I think would be a pure statement. The there was a time, like when you looked at Walt Disney World, when each of the parks had a very specific and unique storytelling base and identity that was different from each other. The Magic Kingdom, of course, was the classic Disney, hub and spoke park.
Yeah.
That celebrated the characters and the stories. Epcot was, celebrating World Showcase and the future world and technology and all the stories that were told there. Animal Kingdom was, celebrating animals from around the world and the stories built around the animals. And the studio, of course, was the studio, which was at least, and in its initial development was, supposedly a working studio, but celebrated the movies.
Sure.
But now when you look at, and I hate to sound like the cranky old man, right? But it's turning into Disney soup, where because they feel like they have to have IP in every park. And what that does is it dilutes the identities of the parks when you can go, when they have character driven, story driven, or IP driven experiences in all of them, they start losing their core identity.
And that would be like having Captain America and Iron Man walking around Disneyland, and you start mixing all that together, and it just becomes a jumble.
Yeah. Maybe that doesn't matter to the guests. They go to Disney for a Disney experience.
I mean, personally, I think they would be better off building a Marvel park, someplace where they can build it as a standalone park that they could, you could then add a sister park that's Star Wars, a whole Star Wars universe that people could be immersed into, not just a little, pimple off of Disneyland. I hate to say pimple. I was looking for a different word, but okay, I said it.
But yeah, exactly, Dave. And you look at the depth of those stories, like you just mentioned Marvel. I mean, the Marvel universe is immense, easily enough subject matter to fill a park. You look at Star Wars, especially as they've grown the storylines, with the Mandalorian and all the other. I mean, again, enough, to easily fill a park. So, I think you're onto something.
Well, it just seems to me, though, that's the engine for the company, and that's the thing that they're really, really good at. Even when they do make a misstep here and there, they're just so good at it, And I just feel as though the company has gotten so big. I mean, at what point do you think they're going to spin off the broadcast networks? Because that's really what they should do. They should create a standalone company for their broadcast networks.
Well, but that gets into the bigger conversation, I think, about the future of broadcast TV. I mean, come on, how much broadcast TV do you watch versus watching streaming?
Well, since I moved, Joe, I only have streaming services, and one of the streaming services I have gives me access to live local newscasts. So I can watch the local news, and I can watch the nightly news, and everything else I can watch on streaming, because if a show drops on CBS, it's only a matter of time before it's up on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? If it
So-
shows on ABC, it shows up on Hulu or Disney Plus. You know, so yeah, I know the whole landscape is changing, and broadcast television, but you know, ESPN, ABC networks, you know, all of those things that they own, and you and I both know they own so many different things. It's crazy. I remember going to a presentation once, and they had the logos for everything they owned, and I was like, "Wow, they own that? I didn't know they owned that." So, but it seems like you could bundle all of that into a standalone company, which would help the actual theme park, movie studio, records, you know, group focus a little bit more. The you know, merchandising and all that, just but not distracted by all of that stuff. And also by doing it, ESPN could get into gambling and sports betting and all kinds of stuff if they want to, without sullying the Disney name.
Yeah.
Right, because that's why Disney hasn't gotten into gambling.
Right.
Right?
Although I think
they looked at one time doing a casino in Las Vegas. I knew you were going to go there. I remember that. You know,
and on the original cruise ship, when we first started designing the Disney, actually, I think we're getting into the next.
We're going to talk about that in our next episode. But okay, real quick though, just real
quick, because we're on the subject of casinos. They originally had a spot carved out on the Disney Magic for a casino because they felt like that was so core to the cruise experience. And it was Michael Eisner at the time who said, you know, that just doesn't align with the brand, and especially where they wanted to go with the cruise in terms of, you know, building a Disney family cruise experience. And in the end, that was, and in fact, that the area where that was going to go, it turned into the teen club, the kids clubs, the teen club, and the other clubs for the kids.
Frankly, I don't think of cruises as like, oh, I'm going to be able to gamble. I mean, the cruise experience is a very different thing for me than, you know, wanting to go into a casino on a ship.
Yeah, but remember, at that time, that was core to the cruise experience.
Well, to the booze cruise, the booze cruise experience.
Right.
But so let's get back onto this, you know, using your experience in animation. How else has your animation career, your early animation career, and your training at Cal Arts, how has that influenced you as an Imagineer as opposed to other Imagineers?
You know, I think, you know, what we learned about few things: staging and the power of a pose. Again, when I look at the work of Mark Davis, who was probably one of my bigger influences, and I think in many ways, not to compare myself with Mark, because I put Mark on a pedestal, but I think I brought a lot of the same kind of qualities that Mark brought to Imagineering, and that was one of the reasons why, in fact, Tony Baxter, who was instrumental in initiating my move from animation to Imagineering, that was one of the things he saw in my work and said, he goes, you know what? He goes, we've lost a little bit of that kind of that humorous storytelling, you know, single moment in a lot of our attractions, which was, you know, what Mark was great at. You know?
Yeah.
And
by the way, Tony was a protege of Claude Coates.
Of course, of course. And he, by the way, I have a Claude Coates story for a little later at some point.
All right.
That,
just tell it now. We're all over the map anyway.
Okay, yeah, why not? So I was when I did make the move over to Imagineering. One of the first things I worked on, they were doing a whole lot of little projects at Walt Disney World. And one was a redo of the Tiki Room, which I really had a lot of fun. And the other was Claude was working on bringing back, I don't know if you remember when Walt Disney World opened, they had swan boats that went around the castle, the lagoon that went around the castle. And they had these beautiful swan boats. And I think it was for operational reasons. They discontinued them. But then it was again the time when I made the transition over there. So it was probably in the late 80s. There was a movement, I think it was Marty Scolari even, who was trying to get the swan boats back. So Claude was working on a concept to do Fantasia Gardens, around the hub, and so that there would be some show elements for the swan boats. And I got, again, because of my animation background, I got to work for a short period of time with Claude on this Fantasia Gardens idea. And I'll never forget my first business trip to Walt Disney World for Imagineering. I got to fly, and back in the day, everybody flew first class when the company was still small.
Yeah.
And I remember I was on an early flight with Claude Coates, and we get on, and Claude ordered me a Bloody Mary. Nice and early in the day. I remember drinking Bloody Marys with Claude Coates as we flew to Florida.
In first class.
In first class. I mean, I was one lucky guy, I got to say. Anyway, for various reasons, they never went with the Fantasia Gardens idea. But what was great is that a lot of the concepts or just the staging ideas and some of the little cute ideas that Claude had come up with and I'd worked with him on, I later used when I did the Fantasia Gardens miniature golf course, which is down there at Walt Disney World.
Which is by which hotel is that by? Is it the
Swan and Dolphin?
The Swan and Dolphin. That was right. Yeah. It's sort of as you're going down the road to the Swan and Dolphin, it's on the left side, as I recall.
Yeah. That's
nice.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we're starting to bump up against time, Joe, but you know what I'd like to do is next week, I'd like to pick up and just talk about the cruise lines because, I've done a little bit of work on the cruise ships over the years when I was at the studio. But I'd like to ask you some like behind the scenes questions of like how these ships get built and all that, because I'm always fascinated about these things.
Yeah, it was a very interesting both design and construction story because it's very different from the theme park story.
Yeah.
But with lots of parallels between the two. So yes, let's talk about that next time.
So with that, I'm going to say, Joe Lanzisero, Imagineer extraordinaire, thank you for being on the Skull Rock podcast once again, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Dave Bossert. Always a pleasure. And Aljon, too. Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Let's get out of here!
Come on, Scotty, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here, Lieutenant.
All right, Dave, great to see Joe back in the hot seat once again. I love Joe's thoughts. It's always great to see, the genius mind at work.
I love having Joe Lanzisero back periodically just to talk about parks and just, entertainment in general. He's somebody who, it's funny, Aljon, I was going through some photos that I had framed that were stacked in my walk-in closet here in my office. Yeah. And I pulled up a frame of a photo of the special effects crew from the Black Cauldron. And guess who was in that photo? Joe Lanzisero. I mean, and by the way, unbelievable too. And I think we can do this at a later date, but I don't have the photo in front of me. But if I grabbed it right now, I could start pointing out all the different directors that came out of that crew.
Yeah.
Right. Because Gary Trousdale, who's going to be an upcoming guest with us, he was in that Black Cauldron effects crew.
Yeah.
And he went on to co-direct, Beauty and the Beast and Atlantis, the Lost Empire, and The Hunchback, and so many other films.
That's great. That's great.
And it's really something else to see. So so it's always great having Joe come back on and drop into the Skull Rock Studios and visit with us periodically. I just love talking to him.
I love the fact that, as you kind of get settled and you unpack more and more of your stuff and your Kim Weber desk and all that stuff you're posting on your Facebook, that you're unearthing these little gems, these photos and
crazy.
the things that you post. It's
crazy.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
It's like you should write your own memoir. When you write your memoir, and you'll be able to put these little tidbits in there and tell stories of all these people and how you guys came about and all the productions you're involved in. I mean, it's really fun.
Please.
Yeah, I love to hear it.
I'm still a youngster. I'm not writing a memoir yet.
I'm here for it. I know that our listeners would love it. Anyway, gang, thank you so much for tuning into this show, albeit a little shorter this week, but we have great content straight ahead. Yes, Dave,
I'm going to interrupt you because I have to tell you, and I'll save. I should save it for next week, but I'm busting at the seams because I just want to tell you this.
Go for it.
I'm going through stuff, and I keep going through. I'm keep unpacking boxes, Aljon. It's just endless.
Okay. Yes.
But I had a birthday card from John Cleese.
That's the one,
right? And
yes.
And so what I was going to mention this week, but we're putting it off to next week of what we were watching. I rewatched the first season of Fawlty Towers.
There you go. We were just talking about this, it seems.
Because I came across that birthday card that John Cleese gave me.
Awesome.
I mean, it's just the craziest stuff that you pull out of boxes that just are these touchstones of memories that flash you back 20, 30 years. It's crazy.
Are we going to have to play show and tell with our viewers next week?
God, I have so much stuff that I could dig out. Maybe we should have a new segment. I'd be curious to hear what our listeners have to say. Maybe we should add a new segment where I pull out just some crazy piece of history and talk about it for 2 seconds.
Do that. Let's do that. Let's bring up a picture and be like, okay, brief story time with Dave and Aljon. You bring up something and I'll bring up something and it'll be fun.
Absolutely.
We'll do a little show and tell. Yeah. How about that?
All right, we'll do that. All right, let's wrap this up.
All right. So if you love the show, thank you so much. Follow us on all the socials. You know where to find us. Leave us those voicemails. There's a link too. We'd love to hear your voice on our podcast. And you can also follow me, Aljon Go, Instagram, X. That's where you can find me. I post really cool stuff about music, and I podcast as well with my wife, Kristen, Dining at Disney. We release new shows every single week. We talk about food in the parks, along with our friend Kat Corey. And by the way, Dave, Kat got a new job. She's working as a project manager now for one of the big places that does all these animatronics and audio. So she finally got her gig.
Wow, that's great! Congratulations,
she's closer.
To her.
Yeah, she's a lot closer to becoming an Imagineer now. So I love that about it. So anyway, we talk about that this week here on Dining at Disney. It's so much fun. Big shout out to our friends at Sorcerer Radio at srsounds.com. All Disney music all day long at srsounds.com. Dave.
Well, as always, you can hear me throughout the month on the Tunes Behind the Tunes on Sirius XM, Disney Hits, Channel 133. During the month of July, I am spotlighting the song Family from the 1996 stop-motion film James and the Giant Peach. You can catch me. The show drops randomly through the month, so if you're listening to Sirius XM, Disney Hits, Channel 133, you'll be able to find or hear me on the Tunes Behind the Tunes, which I absolutely enjoy doing those. Also, if you'd like, you can get signed copies of many of my books at theoldmillpress.com. You can also get author signed copies of newly released The Art of John Kaymaker and Animator's Garden by John Kaymaker, and A Spoonful of Sugar, the story of the Upjohn Pharmacy in Disneyland by Stephen Hall. You can also go to my website, davidbossert.com. There's all kinds of free content you can read. There's free stuff to send away for. And I also want to give a plug to my Patreon page. That's right, patreon.com/David Bossert. I am posting all kinds of articles and various things on my Patreon page, so you can check that out. And with that, Aljon, I'm going to say go out and have a fantastic week. Be good to one another. And I'll see you, Aljon and I will see you next week right here on the Skull Rock Podcast.